Today we will finish Chapter 20, The Universe, with Lesson 2, What Do We Know About the Stars, Part 3. So today we're going to look at constellations. So now that we know the star life cycle and what a star is, we're going to see what a constellation is. And a constellation, its definition, is a particular grouping of stars. So a number of stars that are close together in the night sky is called a constellation. Now, the ancient Greeks, which we're very familiar with, actually created and named 48 of these constellations. So you might have heard of some of the constellations such as Orion, Leo, Scorpius. Well, they all have stories behind them. And one of the stories is Orion, and he was a handsome hunter who fell in love with the goddess Artemis. And Artemis accidentally killed him, and so she placed him up in the nighttime sky to remember him forever. This is just one example of the story, or the various stories that you will hear from the different constellations. So each constellation has its own story. Today, we group stars into 88 constellations. Every star in the nighttime sky that we can see is part of one of these 88 constellations. However, just because they are part of this constellation, they might not be related in any other way. They don't necessarily have to be close to each other in space. They don't necessarily have the same brightness or same color. They're just put together based on their arrangement in the nighttime sky as it appears to us. Now, some of the most well-known, or one of the best well-known constellations is called Ursa Major. And Ursa Major is, literally translates into Big Bear. And Ursa Major, which is the Big Bear here, you can kind of see its tail and its feet, and its front feet, and kind of its nose here. So Ursa Major is one of the best known constellations, the Big Bear. And it actually contains a cluster of stars called the Big Dipper, which you're probably familiar with. And it looks like a big ladle, okay? The Big Dipper is not a constellation. It is part of the constellation Ursa Major. And the two stars in the Big Dipper are actually called pointer stars, because those stars will point directly to the North Star. The North Star, which is always above the North Pole in the nighttime sky. So if you find the North Star, you know which direction north will be. Now, these constellations, some of them, if you were to have the sun in the nighttime sky. Now, we can't see the stars when we see the sun, but let's say we could see them both at the same time. Well, due to the position of the Earth at various points revolving around the sun, due to various points, we can see if our sun were in the line of vision of one of these constellations, then this band of constellations, these are all constellations in the nighttime sky, is called the zodiac band, okay? And these zodiac stars, or constellations, are what we would see at each point. So, for instance, at about March 18th is my birthday. So, if we were to look from Earth at the constellations just past our sun, then it would be right about at Pisces, and that's my star sign. So maybe you can find your star sign, or your zodiac symbol and sign from this diagram. So as you can see, at December 20th, we would see around a Sagittarius or a Scorpius. At June 20th, we would see the Gemini or Taurus. At September 20th, we would see about Virgo or Leo, and so on and so forth. So if you go in between, you'll see different constellations in the nighttime sky, and that's called the zodiac symbols. So But if you look in the nighttime sky, you'll see that at 8 o'clock at night is going to look very different from 5 o'clock in the morning, the nighttime sky. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you're going to see different constellations in the nighttime sky than you would in the southern hemisphere. And during the seasons, as we just pointed out, you'll see different constellations. Well, why is this? Well, this is all due to the Earth's movement. Much like we think, or it appears to us, that the sun is moving across the sky, we know that that's because the Earth is actually rotating. So the rotation on its axis is going to affect the hours of the day and which constellations we see at each hour of the day. And then the revolution around the sun is going to, like we see here, the revolution around the sun is going to indicate a different constellation that we see in the nighttime sky. So those seasons also affect what we see in our nighttime sky. And all of that is based on the movement